realized I need to record this. And coming off all of this, just also with Chris is going to be teaching a IPB 390 art class in the winter semester on storytelling, and he'll talk a little bit about this. And if this topic really interests you, Chris talking about nonprofit work and its connection to peace building, David Whippy also teaches IPB 311 in winter semester as well, which is around nonprofits and peace building, and he'll take you through even like getting to start to brainstorm your own nonprofit and what would look like, and he'll take you through all that as well. And so there's some really cool follow-up things that we'll be able to do here in winter semester with what Chris is talking about today. So I'm going to turn the time over to Chris. And again, this is Chris Pineda. He's the Director of Community Engagement for Mountain West Philanthropies and a former BYU Hawaii Peacebuilding All-Star. Is probably the best way to describe him. So Chris, we'll turn the time over to you.
Thanks, Chad. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
You're too nice. I don't feel deserving of everything that you said. But happy to share some insight and some thoughts today. Just as an FYI, I usually don't hang my own art up. This was a gift for Chad, obviously, before I left, Hawaii and finishing up school. And that's really the only time I do art and get out my stuff and go at it. And I don't keep them, but this one means a lot to me. And I wasn't intending it to mean a lot to me, but President McKay, David O. McKay means the world to me. Obviously, I never met him in this life, but I became, and this is probably the most important thing that I can, share with you in our connection to the McKay Center and to the IBB program is, that vision that he had means the world to me, and it moved me at really profound, spiritual, intimate ways to where I couldn't do anything else with my life other than trying to fulfill what President McKay saw, and that's a major part of my why, that coupled with doing what the Lord wants me to do, and that's how I try to live my life. I fail at it every day, but that's probably the most important thing that I could share with you about me and what's got me to where I'm at. The Lord and President McKay's vision. That's it in a nutshell. There's a lot more to be said in the details, which I want to be able to share and provide insight on. But those two things are probably the most important. And after that, it's my family, my amazing wife and partner, Mackenzie. She's amazing, and we have 3 amazing kids. And in conjunction with those first 2 items, they're another source of motivation. And so those things are really, what's important to me. But there's a bit of an origin story of what, got me here. And it's not glamorous like, Iron Man or anything, but, it started with McKay's vision, like I said, and it started with small opportunities that I saw when I was at the McKay Center before I was a field director or Chad's assistant or doing anything like that. It was just little opportunities that I took in the moment. And I think that's all of those little opportunities are what help you get to where you want to be, into places like I'm fortunate enough to be in right now, and to know the people that I know. It's being prepared for those opportunities. And so we can call it luck, we can call it whatever, but I think it's preparedness meets opportunity, and taking advantage of it, take it and seize it. And so it started with little things at the McKay Center that came up, and me trying to be proactive and saying, hey, can I do that, or can I try that out, and then trying it out. And I believe it started with some Arbinger on campus. I got trained as a facilitator, and I just went to Chad and said, hey, can I do this, or do I have to, can I just go to different groups on campus and try to introduce this to them? And he said, sure, go for it. Started with the athletic department, with the soccer team that I was a part of, and it just kind of spread from there, and ended up being able to do quite a bit of Arbinger throughout campus there, and that was, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just winging it and doing my best. And I still feel like I'm winging it and doing my best. I'm asked to do things often that I don't fully know how to do, and that's part of the, part of the process is being willing to figure it out, even though you may not know exactly what to do or how to do it. So that's kind of where it started, and was fortunate enough to work for the McKay Center and be involved in a lot of projects there, and do some things with Chad and others that got me some really important experience. And then from there, I went to go work with Arbinger, and I was essentially working for free when I first went there, and it didn't really work out. I went there to start an athletic industry for them, and it just didn't work out. And so we came to this point, married, have one little baby at the time, where it was had no job and nowhere, nothing to do, and sitting around wondering, what am I going to do with my life? I really want to fulfill President McKay's vision, but I started to get in this frame of mind of, well, I need to survive, which is important. So I started looking for any job, that I can get. I was looking in sales jobs, and I was so close. And these were really important moments for me looking back. I was so close to letting go of what I felt I needed to do with my life. I was so close. It was like, that's a silly dream. It's not going to work, right? This is the real world, and I got to suck it up and just do what I need to do. And that's the truth. I do need to suck it up and do what I need to do. But I was super close to letting go of that vision, and so close that I was looking into sales jobs. I actually passed all the tests to become a state trooper, right? I mean, I laugh now thinking that I was considering that. Not that that's a bad thing. That's a great thing to do. But for me, looking back, it's kind of hard to believe that was a path that I was looking at. And really nothing was going my way. And again, fortunately, I have a great family and a great supportive wife, and so we were able to hunker down and figure things out. And Arbinger eventually came back and offered a full-time job working on their corporate side of things. And that was actually my last choice of things I wanted to do. I kind of felt a little jaded with my experience at Arbinger. And I love everybody at Arbinger, and I love the Arbinger Institute, but I felt like, man, I worked really hard for free for a little while, and now, it was a mutual, this isn't going to work out, but I didn't want to go back necessarily. And so I was accepted to a few different grad programs, and my wife and I were looking at, going to attend those programs. One of them was in Australia, another one was in UPeace in Costa Rica, and a couple programs in the United States, one of them being Creighton University, their negotiation and conflict resolution program. And so those were all our top choices. Then Arbinger called, and gosh, and this is another moment, these small moments that you have to be in tune with, because they only happen one time. And if you don't take advantage of them, you don't know where you might end up. So that day when Arbinger called, of course, I told Kenzie, my wife, and we were like, yeah, that's last option. Let's not do that, right? We feel good about these other things. And all day, I still remember all day, I was jobless. So I was just doing random things like helping around my parents' house and trying to do what I could. But all day I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to go back to Arbinger. And I didn't like the feeling because I didn't want to go there, but I couldn't shake it. And at the end of the day, I was so afraid to tell Kenzie because she was a little more hurt than I was with our experience there. So I didn't want to bring it up with her because I was afraid she was just be mad. Like, you're thinking of going back? That's what I thought she would say. And we're laying in bed that night, and I have this feeling that I should just tell her. So I've been silent. I thought she might have been asleep, but I said, Kenzie, I feel like all day I've been feeling one thing, and that we need to take that Arbinger job. And she was quiet for about 5 seconds, and then she said, I've been feeling the same thing all day. And the rest is kind of history there. We decided to do that, and I pursued my my master's degree through Creighton, kind of a hybrid, online program while I was working at Arbinger. And I ended up loving it. I was being successful there. I was getting opportunities. I was making good money. I was happy and our family was happy. And I thought I would be there for a long time. And then two individuals from Mountain West Philanthropies came to one of our 2-day trainings that we had in Salt Lake from Oregon. And they're real estate developers, right? So that's what I saw on paper, real estate development. And I looked them up, pretty small company. So I thought, well, I'll meet with them and maybe take them on as a client. And I met with them at lunch. And this was about 4.5 years ago, 4.5 years ago. And I met with them at lunch. And first day in an Arbinger training, they came to me and they said, how can we bring this up to our community of Salem? And I said, what do you mean? Well, we want to bring outward mindset up there. We want to turn our community outward. And I thought that was kind of a silly thing to desire after 3 hours of an Arbinger training. And so I entertained their thoughts and had a conversation with them at lunch, didn't really believe them or take them seriously. And then about a couple weeks after that, they called me and they said, hey, we have 40 people that we want to introduce this to. Superintendent of the school district, Secretary of State. They start listing off all these CEOs and executive directors of different nonprofits in the community of Salem, which is the capital of Oregon. And I'm like, wow, these guys are serious. So they said, get us 40 packets, Arbinger's material and a facilitator up here on October 6th. And I said, all right, you got it. Still not fully knowing what these people were capable of or what they meant. And of course, I showed up that a couple months after that in October, and everybody they said was going to be there, that they would invite, was there. And that was the first, moment, the first introduction of outward mindset principles to the community of Salem. And now there's been over 3,000, 4,000 people trained in outward mindset here, hundreds of different organizations, the school districts, nonprofits, businesses, government entities. A few years after that to present day. But in between all of that, it led me to, being a little more curious about what these people were about, and very strong promptings. It's these little moments that if you're catching anything today, it's the little moments that you try to take advantage of. And there was one day particularly that I felt that I needed to reach out to them while I was at Arbinger. I need to call one of these guys and tell them how I feel. And I didn't know what I felt. I just felt like I loved what they were trying to do in their community, and I wanted to be a part of it, not intending to leave Arbinger. And I was scared to make the call because I felt like it would be kind of inappropriate to give them some sort of hint that I wanted to work with them, even though I didn't. I just wanted to express that I enjoyed what they were doing and I wanted to be a part of it outside of my role at Arbinger. And I fought the feeling for a couple of days. And finally, I built up the courage and I called one of them. His name was Brian. And we spent 2 hours on the phone as I shared with him what I felt. And I shared with him President McKay's vision on the phone. That's what I believe in and that's what I care about. And I feel like what they're trying to do in Salem is a part of that. And that conversation was incredible. It didn't really lead to any sort of decision. It was just, hey, thank you for sharing this. It's really kind of spiritual, intimate conversation. And then, about a month or so after that, they flew down, and there was a few conversations that happened between that, but they flew down and they took me to lunch and said, we don't know what we want you to do up in Oregon, but we would like you to come up here and work with us. And I'm thinking this whole time, like, these are real estate developers. How am I going to make things work up there? What am I going to do? And I come to find out that they also give a lot. They're very wealthy and they do a lot in their community, and they donate to a lot of groups, and they try to make change happen with their influence and their checkbook, right? But they're not a philanthropic organization. They don't know how to, they don't know how to do community, nonprofit, NGO type of work. And one of the things they said to me is over time, I shared with them what I did at the McKay Center and some of the things I was involved with there. They started by saying, we want you to try to do what you did there, but in our community. And I said, okay, I guess I can try that out. And so I came up here and I didn't really there was no guarantee. It was, hey, let's try it out for a year and see how this goes. And all I did was what I knew how to do: put my head down, nose down, and go to work. And I just started to get to know people, build relationships, understand needs in the community, and leveraging outward mindset material to address some of those needs. I started mediating, in different organizations, in situations that, to be quite honest, I don't know if I was always qualified for, but I had to rise to the occasion. And I spent a lot of time speaking and facilitating, and the rest is kind of history. Everything just grew out to where it is now, to where Mountain West has a full-on philanthropic team that we're engaged with the community and doing very different things in education, helping increase graduation rates, to help trying to end homelessness in our community, engaging in some of our highest need neighborhoods that we have here, to starting a leadership institute. And so there's so much action that we're involved with now. But it all happened over time, and it all happened just, one step at a time, little by little, and following those small little promptings and feelings that you get. You can call it the spirit, you can call it whatever you want. I call it the spirit, but you can call it a gut feeling, whatever makes sense to you, to follow those, and to be vulnerable and to take risks. Don't put yourself in danger and harm's way physically or emotionally, but take risks and be willing to be uncomfortable, and admit that you don't know everything, and try to be humble and suffer and use it. Use the challenges and the suffering that you go through to help other people. That's kind of what's led me. I didn't intend for it to blabble that long, but that's the quick version of kind of what's got me here. And I don't know if you want me to keep going, Chad, or if you want to interject questions or other thoughts, but.
Chris, why don't you just give a little bit more detail about what it's actually like what you guys do on a day-to-day basis. Everything from your leadership academy that you've worked up. I mean, you've worked through so many sort of innovative things. I think it'd be kind of cool to see all the stuff that you've had to build and put in place to do what you do.
Yeah, that's a good question. So a little bit more, context to set that up. When I first came up here, I worked for Mountain West, but they were real estate developers, right? I mean, so they had no official community engagement or philanthropic team. It was just, they write checks and they give a lot of money to good causes. And occasionally they have an idea and they try to get people together to make it happen. And that was the extent of their community work, which was incredible and did amazing things. But that was it. And so there was me and a bunch of for-profit people trying to develop property, right? And I didn't work on the for-profit side, but that was it. I was one person trying to spread outward mindset in the community and to be helpful to a community. And over time, this is really important, is the spreading of outward mindset material does a couple of things, right? It creates a common language for people in a community. So you imagine a community that comes together to try to solve something like homelessness. And in Salem, we have almost 3,000 homeless people. How do you solve that when there's dozens of different organizations that all have a different reason why it happens? Some people think it's religious. Some people think it's politics. Some people think it's, everybody has different perspective on why homelessness exists and how to solve it. And so when you have people like that come together, you don't really get anywhere, because people just spend time arguing, battling for resources, battling for who's right and who's wrong. But when you have outward mindset that's been percolating and cultivating in a community, leaders from all over, they share that language. And so they can get to the root of the problem a lot quicker. It's not problem X, Y, and Z. It's, well, look, first we need to address the inward mindset is present, and that's why this exists. And they find a commonality, they find a common ground with one another. And so that's been a really important thing that for the first couple of years that I spent doing, even though it was spreading outward mindset as much as I could, it created healthy soil, if you will, for us to be able to plant these seeds that, that Chad wants me to expound upon. You can't just start a leadership institute out of thin air when you have zero influence and zero relationships, and the soil's not ready, right? And so our institute that we've started is being successful because we spent so long building relationships and helping turn the community outward, one leader at a time, one organization at a time. And remember, outward mindset is simply being alive to your inward mindset. So it's not like Salem's perfect. It's just now people are able to point out when they're inward and they're trying to do things about it. So that part's really important. And it starts with little ideas. So, for example, our initiative trying to engage with some of our highest need neighborhoods, that came from different meetings that we would have where people were using outward mindset, and we wanted to address some of our community needs. So it was, hey, let's come together and let's use some outward mindset tools to talk about some of our needs in our community. And when you create a really nice and safe space, people start to share real things that are going on. And when we're able to pinpoint those things, when you have the right people in the room, you have the right decision makers in the room, you can start to put together initiatives and programs that can really work. And so although I'm not involved in all the details of some of those initiatives, I certainly have had to be able to build relationships with people that do have those things, provide, any perspective that I can provide. And when it comes to outward mindset or conflict, or transformational change. And so I've had to, take on a hat of being, a support, a coach, a consultant to some of these efforts. And Mountain West in a lot of ways becomes a convener, right? We bring people together so that they can go about doing what they want to do. And philanthropically, if you're not familiar with philanthropy, it's trying to do good. And in this case, it's trying to do good with money. And there's two ways of looking at that. There's one way that's kind of traditional philanthropy, which is based on grants, where you give money away, you write checks, right? And then there's this other form of philanthropy that's very much action oriented. We call it action philanthropy, which is where we have an idea or we have a goal or a need that we see that we want to address, right? And so we do both of those things. We give away a lot of resources and a lot of money, and I don't really have anything to do with that right now, but it happens, and we give millions away, a year. But we also do action philanthropy, which is we have all these things that we see in our community, and we want to make sure that we create sustainable change. So it's like the give a man a fish or teach them how to fish, right? We really believe in, well, if we can do both, let's do both, right? If we can give a fish, let's give a fish. But if we can really help create sustainable change and teach someone how to fish, let's do that too. And so in a lot of what we do, we're not always the content experts. Like I don't know how to end homelessness, and Mountain West certainly doesn't. But what we can do is help people come together in outward ways to figure it out. And so we strongly believe in helping people find their own problems to their own solutions to their own problems. It's how we engage with community groups. It's how we engage with organizations that we work with, nonprofits we work with, and how we engage with leaders. We don't have the answers, but we want to help them find their own. And one of the main things about community work is the community has the answers. It's usually just across the table or down the street or down the hallway. But if people are inward, or in conflict, they're not going to see those solutions. And so, a lot of our work is just helping the community see the solutions. We don't know what they are, so we're discovering them along the way. But to me, peace building is helping people come together like that. And those are skill sets that I learned, started to learn at the McKay Center, and that I've just tried to utilize to help them grow and help my understanding and my experience grow. But like I said at the beginning, every day, I don't always know what I'm doing. I'm just doing my best and trusting in what I know and trying to learn from other people and others around me. So, that's kind of how things start. They've all started organically. I never would have thought that we would start a leadership institute. I would never think that we would have monthly leadership sessions or a podcast that's, spreading around. I would have never thought that we would have those things, and they all happened organically, because it's what the community needed. And so it's not like I came into a community and said, I have all these goals and dreams that I want to fulfill, and I'm going to make this community accept them. It was coming into a community and understanding the needs of the community, and where their challenges are, where the gaps are, and then doing something to fill those. I think that's why we've been successful here, is because we don't have an agenda of things that, some hidden idea of what we want to create or see happen. It's all in response to needs that we found. So I don't know if that answers that, Chad, but
I think that's awesome. I think it's probably a good time now to segue into answer questions. I know that and David also gets these a lot. Students want to know everything from how do I start my own NGO to looking at NGOs are the things that I should be studying in school, what have you. But we'll open it up to the group here, and also if you're following along live on Facebook, you can chime in there, and I'll be monitoring both of those. Anybody have a question for Chris? We will go to David Whippy, who has a question for Chris.
Hey, Chris, I know the organization sounds awesome. Just from a student standpoint, and maybe because of my role here, are there opportunities to do an internship, maybe from campus, doing some curriculum development with you, or even coming out there to do an internship with the organization?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have anything formal set up, but COVID-19 has really set us back on the type of kind of physical face-to-face engagement that we can do, but we're trying to do as much as we can virtually, right now. But the point I'm getting to is there's a lot that we get involved with here, and the timeline's always iffy there, but on when things, when you're doing community work, you rely upon people to get it done. I mean, it's a business of people. So our success is their success. So we can't always control timeline on when things move and how quickly they move. And so that's why we don't have anything officially set up, but always open to helping students get, experience, whether it's, small or large, whether it's a conversation, whether they want to sit in on something that we do, or they want to, be able to come out here. I think part of the success that we had is in the early days, David, and this is, there were several McKay Center students that were supportive to what we were doing, to what I was doing, and I hope and pray that it was beneficial to them as much as it was for me. But it certainly helped me out, get things off the ground. So there's a lot of right now informal ways that we can be supportive, but always open to formal ways as well.
Mahalo, thanks for that, brother.
Okay, other questions for Chris Pineda? Again, either on Facebook or here. Here's one from Julia Snow. Actually, now Julia Ford. I've signed up for the storytelling class. Can you talk more about the class and how it came to be? How does storytelling complement the NGO work you do?
Yeah, that's a good question. The origin story of me, I love stories, and I love storytelling, and I believe it's a skill set that you have to. Some people are naturally gifted with it, but you have to develop it. But the first time that I, realized that I wanted to tell stories and to be good at it, was like many of you. It was a story I heard from Chad when I was a freshman in college. And, the story that he shared was transformative to me to help me realize some things in my life. But there was also this really practical component of, I like what he's doing. I want to do that one day. And so I've ever since then, I've been attached to stories, and, going throughout Arbinger training helped me refine how to tell stories and why. And I kind of latched onto it. And so in my master's program, in my my thesis and my practicum, it was all about storytelling, and how storytelling can impact peace building and conflict. And so, that just helped grow my knowledge around the idea of telling stories, and how to tell them and why to tell them. And so in the class, that's kind of what got me to being, to loving the idea of storytelling. And I call them formal storytelling. It's not so much like talking story, I call that informal storytelling. But formal storytelling, where you're telling a story with a purpose that you've analyzed, that you've thought about, and that you've indexed, and so we talk about in the class kind of theoretically how human beings tell stories. We always have. That's just what we do. And we enjoy stories. We read books, we watch movies, and so we talk about kind of these theoretical, philosophical underpinnings of stories. And then we quickly make the distinction between formal stories and informal stories. And then we dive into how formal telling stories can, I call it the double-edged sword. They can cause a lot of harm. They can invite negative emotions, and they can be harmful, or they can be a tool to help people come together. And so we talk about how do we help it be that sort of a tool? How does it impact, facilitation or building trust with people? How does it impact the ability for a leader to lead in a transformative or influential manner? And then we get down to kind of the DNA of how to tell a story. Like what do you say and what do you not say? The characters that you should include, the setting, all leading up to what I call the 5-second moment, which is that moment of transformation. It's that moment where you came to a realization of something, which is the reason why you're sharing this story. So we talk about that, and then we help people understand the different settings that they could share stories, whether it's writing or facilitating or speaking or presenting, or videography. Tay Still, who many of you might know, him and I have been able to work a lot together after graduating, and we produced some videos together. And so there's a lot of ways to tell story, and we just want to help. The goal of the class is I want to help students see that there's so many ways to tell stories, and that they all have stories to share that can impact people. Something that Chad and I spoke about recently on a podcast episode was everyone is suffering in a room. You don't know who's suffering, but everybody is. And sometimes a story that we share that's been well analyzed and well thought about can help somebody, right? And so I know that day when Chad shared a story so many years ago about him and his father, that wasn't the first time he shared the story, right? He had thought about it. He knew the purpose behind it. He knew how to tell it. And so it impacted people like me in the room. And so I think as peace builders, that's a skill set that we can develop to be well equipped with several stories that we can share. So that's the goal of the class and the purpose behind it.
Thanks, Chris. And that class is IPB 390R, and it's available in winter semester with Chris Pineda as the professor, all online, obviously. Emmeline Haney, one of our 121 students, asked, what was the biggest learning experience from Arbinger? Or what was your favorite learning experience from Arbinger?
Yeah, Arbinger, they taught me a lot. It was my first, real corporate job, right? So I learned how to be a professional there, right? I learned how an organization runs and how business runs and all their flaws, right? Arbinger they have great content, but they're just like anybody else. They have imperfections and people aren't perfect there. And so, I got to see that and learn from it. And I got to build valuable relationships there. And that's probably, my favorite thing still is the people that I met there. Being able to learn from them and the relationships that I built with them are by far, the best thing that I took away from my time at Arbinger.
Chris, can I follow up with a related thing? You're both with Mountain West, you're both a client of Arbinger's, but then you've been developing your own curriculum, the Rooted Leadership curriculum. And maybe you could talk to me about why both, or why you have transitioned from one, or you're using both of them together. I think that might be interesting for people.
Yeah. So we have a special relationship with Arbinger. We're like a partner to them. They allow us to do things in the community here that they don't really let other communities do. And that's because of those relationships, and because they like what we're trying to, they really enjoy what we're trying to do. They feel like we're helping turn the world outward, which is their goal and their vision that they have as an organization. So there's that. And so we have that relationship. But when we got this idea, and we did a lot of listening sessions with our community of what does our community need in terms of leadership development, we pulled out of this idea of an institute, and we started talking about the curriculum there. Well, as an organization, it's never been written down, but they've always believed in an approach to their work. And we put a language to it based around this analogy of soil, seeds, and weeds, right? Like if you're going to help a community, you got to first cultivate the soil, right? And the soil means the people. And the people have different mindsets that they carry around with them, and attitudes. And so how do you cultivate that? And how do you help a group of people, whether it's an organization or community, be prepared for a seed, which is an idea, right? And there's a lot of ideas out there, a lot of seeds that people think of every day. And so that's kind of how those came together as an organization for us. And then the weeds are the conflict. What do you do with the conflict that grows out of nowhere and that has deep ingrained roots? How do you get to the root of those weeds? And so that's the framework that we believed in. And then we saw that, well, that's something that we should be teaching to leaders as well. And Arbinger has influenced that framework, but it's also different. And so we created a curriculum. We spent several months creating a curriculum that is definitely influenced by things like, Arbinger, many things that I learned in the McKay Center, from Chad and from others, things that I learned, in my master's degree. And it just kind of all came together when you take the time and you put in the work to develop yourself. There's moments like this where things start to make sense and they come together. And it was a group effort for sure. But we created a curriculum that is not Arbinger, right? And we wanted to do that for a reason, because we're not Arbinger. And so we can't always rely on Arbinger to provide content for us or to do things for us. And we will, as long as they'll let us, right? We will keep milking that until they say no more, right? We're going to keep doing outward mindset for as long as we can, but we needed to create something that was sustainable beyond that. And so that's why we created our own curriculum. And it goes hand in hand with outward mindset. It's different, but it definitely is influenced by it. And that took a lot of time and energy to create it, but we're glad that we have it for our Leadership Institute.
It's really cool. I've got to see it and work a little bit with the Leadership Institute. It's a really cool, creative thing that you can see the influence of Arbinger. You can see some influence from Dangerous Love, and then you also see Chris using his own creativity and his own experience to plow new ground as well. And that's the same with us. Arbinger deeply influenced Dangerous Love. Other things that I learned in my grad school classes deeply influenced me, but then I'm also plowing in some new ground ourselves. And so that's really just sort of cool to see that ongoing learning. Any other questions for Chris?
Yeah, you can ask me anything from really practical, detail-oriented things to 30,000-foot view, high-level type of things. I'm happy to answer anything.
Chris, I'll put you on the spot for a second. A lot of our students like to do internships, be able to see things, firsthand on the ground. Any opportunities with your organization to do an internship or to be able to get a better view of sort of what you do and how you guys operate?
Yeah, and nothing formal, right? But definitely open to thinking of what can work. And I know with Chad, we had some conversations, I don't know, a couple of years ago or early, I can't remember when, time just meshes all together, but of what opportunities could we provide for the McKay Center. And this is kind of a fun story in and of itself, is and I hope that you can find ways to do this wherever you end up in the world, right? It's going to be, sometimes it will be inappropriate to full on share McKay's vision with people, but sometimes it will be appropriate. And sometimes you'll have to share it in different ways. But I was fortunate enough to be able to share President McKay's vision with the people that I work with here, to the point where it moved them to where they wanted to actually come out to BYU Hawaii to learn more about it and to meet Chad and to kind of feel that spirit around the vision. And so after they did that, they had a desire to be helpful to the McKay Center. So that desire still exists. So, however we can help in an internship perspective, if we can figure something out, we definitely will. But now that we have these different areas of focus that are a lot more defined than they were, let's say a year and a half ago, we have areas of, if you're interested, our work with schools, right? We do a lot of outward mindset work with kids in the classroom. We have 5 different high schools teaching a class on outward mindset this year. That's an entire year long, right? We have this community work around homelessness and some of these high need neighborhoods, and we don't manage those, but we have influence there, and so we know a lot of organizations that are involved. And then we have this leadership institute as well, and then all of our outward mindset in the community work. So there's different areas, and we're happy to explore ideas. That offer is still on the table, but I wish I could say we had some formal thing, well defined, but we don't. But we're open to it 100%.
Okay, other questions for Chris today? Check Facebook.
Somebody says they can't open their mic on chat.
Okay, Abriel. You compared people with the soil, where seeds of an outward mindset would be the plan. Was it hard to prepare the soil? I am interested in the work directly with the people.
Yeah, I mean, soil work is never easy, but it's always worth it. So when it comes to, I'll tell you kind of theoretically what we mean by that, and I have already shared a little bit about our use of outward mindset to cultivate the soil, but it's a lot of relationship building. I went to a lot of lunches and coffee meetings, right, and had a lot of conversations, and with zero intent other than to learn from people and be curious, understand what makes them tick and what their challenges are. A lot of time doing that, and having to get out of my comfort zone to be with people that maybe I wouldn't normally socialize with. It's not easy to do that work for some people, and I actually identify more as an introvert. So, for me, it was hard to always have to do that, but that's a lot of the soil work. It starts there, but then you start to find challenges or problems in the soil where there's conflict, that's there. So how can you cultivate healthy soil if there's a nasty weed that's there, right? And weeds aren't people. It's just, you all know, I'm preaching to the choir, how conflict starts. And so a lot of it has been, how do we start to get to the root of some of these weeds? And that's really sometimes delicate work to do that. It takes time. That's what we mean by cultivate the soil. A huge part of it is working with leaders. And that's, again, why it made sense to start a leadership institute, because we were already working with dozens and dozens of leaders here in the community. Your quick answer to your question is it's hard work, but I mean, that is the work, in my opinion. That is what we are supposed to do, is to cultivate the soil and work in the soil. That is our job. So, that's why we do it.
Chris, if people wanted to go to grad school or they want to do further education, again, we talked about David Whitby's IPB 311 class. We're going to take, your storytelling class. what do you recommend if people want to continue to kind of work in this field? I think you're actually doing something around, is it organizational behavior?
Yeah, it's a PhD in psychology, industrial and organizational psychology. Well, I love learning. So if you can pursue a higher education, keep doing it, is my opinion. And obviously, when you know what you want to do in the world, be well equipped to do it. So study something that's going to help you, be a benefit to other people and to help in my mind spread McKay's vision. And there's a lot of ways to get your schooling done. For me, because I've always been working full time and I have a family and a lot going on, doing online school has always been the best option. And online school is hard. It's very much self-regulated, as most of you know now, because everything's online, right? You don't get to show up to a class and you have to do everything on your own. There's nobody pushing you to do it, and you're not on a campus to where you have tons of resources available to you. So you have to put in a little extra work there. So online school is and this is my plug for online school, it's a great option. It's just as rigorous and just as challenging, and you learn just as much as you would in person. And so that's a great option if you need to be working full time, or your life situation doesn't allow you to go to grad school in person. But if it does, certainly do that, right? There's part of me that wishes I had that opportunity as well. But definitely pursue education if that's something that interests you, because it's just going to continue to add to your ability to contribute. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir, but if you're invested in your education, you're going to learn a ton, and it provides opportunities to do things that you wouldn't have otherwise. But on the same breath, you got to get the experience. So you got to go out and do stuff, and you got to do stuff for free. I remember Chad saying that when I was at the McKay Center. He would tell stories about how he would just do things for free. When he first started out, you got to do things for free, and you got to see how it works. You got to understand how you are in those environments. You got to understand what you like and what you don't like, what you're good at and what you're not good at, and that just starts with giving of yourself, giving of your time. And I'm rambling now, but hope that answers that question.
Thank you, Chris. Any last questions from everybody? Well, I really want to appreciate Chris and coming on and joining us today. You were awesome, Chris. Really appreciate all your help. And this is one of our alumni. So if any of you feel like you need to talk more with Chris, I'm sure we can find a way to connect you together. And just again, want to plug his 390 art class in storytelling in the winter semester, as well as David Whitby's 311 class in NGOs and Peacebuilding that he'll also be offering in the winter semester, where you get to dive deep. And I know David's going to have you do some case studies with some NGOs. We're going to be brainstorming. David, you want to just quickly tell us a little bit about that class? You want to just give a little plug for IPB 311 as well?
Yeah, so can you hear me okay? Yep, so the class, basically we will be talking about some of the programs, some of the main programs that NGOs run around the world. The hope is that we can secure enough NGOs from the mainland and in the Pacific and hopefully in Asia, where we can have them work with them remotely over a couple of weeks. This is what Chris was talking about, where in the early stages of his program, some of our students did work with him. And yes, there was a lot of benefit that our students saw just being able to work under his guidance at that time corner piece, right? We'll be going through programs. We're going to be also looking at the day-to-day operations of NGOs and nonprofits, how to write activity reports, how to write financial reports. So we can equip you with some of the skills that if you want to go into an NGO and nonprofit right after school, you have some of these skills already.
Awesome. Okay, everybody. Next week, Isabella Durajo is going to be joining us, one of our field directors for the McKay Center, and she's going to be talking about peace building and allyship, and especially around peace building and LGBTQ issues. And we're excited to have Bella join us next week. We'll see you next week, everybody. Thank you so much. Thanks again, Chris.
Yeah,
Thanks, Chris.
thanks everyone. Take care.